first couple of weeks, well, week 2 in particular, that played against Clemson. They look much better, much more crisp offensively. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see just how everything plays out. Right now, I would say, without a doubt, my 4 teams in the college football playoff I'll probably have Clemson number 1, just because they have the most impressive win of the year versus Auburn. Alabama 2. I'd have to go with Georgia at 3 and Penn State at 4, with TCU nipping right at their heels at 5, followed by Washington State, Wisconsin, Auburn, and Ohio State. Now, how good is Washington? I'm sorry, Washington State. How good is Washington State? At the same time, you can ask the question, how good is Washington as well? But how good is Washington State? One thing about the Pac-12 is you never know what you're going to get, especially us here on the East Coast. They get those late night starts, usually after 9:30, maybe even after 10 o'clock sometimes. You get those late night starts, and then you go to bed and you wake up, or you're watching the game, you fall asleep during the game, you wake up, and it's in the fourth quarter, and you're looking and you're like, okay, what just happened? And that's what can happen over the next few weeks until, they do have a tough game, again, at home, but that's at the beginning of November versus Stanford. And then the game versus Washington. So we don't think they should be challenged. I don't think that they should be favored in every game going up to Stanford. And depending on how well Stanford is playing at the time will depend on whether or not they'll be favored or how big of a favorite. You think Stanford has 2 losses, and both of those losses have come to teams that are currently ranked into the top 25, San Diego State and USC. Since then, they've taken care of business, UCLA, Arizona State, and then a big win at Utah. So, but Stanford has a big game this weekend against Oregon. The Pac-12 is up for grabs. The Pac-12 is up for grabs just for the simple fact that Washington and Washington State, they eventually are going to have to play each other. And then when you consider Stanford still has to play both of them as well, the Pac-12 North is definitely wide open, whereas the Pac-12 South is pretty much solidified. It's going to be USC. Utah, Arizona, UCLA, Arizona State, Colorado, they're not going to challenge USC in the South. But the North is really a 3-team race, and with Stanford having to play the other 2, because Washington, they don't have to go and play USC in the cross division play. Stanford and Washington State did. Stanford lost, Washington State won, but it makes it very interesting. Makes it very interesting. I think the Pac-12 is going to go to either Washington State or USC. I think Washington State may be exactly who they think they are. I'm starting to really like them. They're impressive. They're impressive, you know. Going into Eugene after a big win the week before, they could have easily went in and laid the egg, and it wouldn't have surprised me. So to go into Eugene and win convincingly, in the second, pretty much just dominating the second half, pitching a shutout in the second half, after trailing 10-7, you were trailing 10-7 after the first quarter, and then for the next 3 quarters, you pitch a shutout while scoring 26 points. That's impressive. That's impressive. So I believe that Washington State, I believe they're here to stay. It's going to come down to them in Washington at the end of the year. Who wants it? How bad you want it? And then the winner of that game will play USC for the Pac-12 championship. And it's hard to say right now, this column, what's going to happen with the college football playoff. But again, things will start to clear itself out. The more teams play games, teams start dropping games, teams start winning games. Because it's a tough road ahead for some teams. Like, Michigan's 4-1, and people might say they still have a chance. Michigan's probably done. You know, you can improve your offense going forward, but I don't think they can improve their offense enough over the next 2 months to be a legitimate threat the rest of the season. You still have to go to Happy Valley. You still have to go to Wisconsin, and then you host Ohio State. Those were the 3 games, and you've already got a loss on the resume to a then unranked Michigan State team who's currently ranked. You drop one of those 3 games, you have 2 losses, both of those in conference, you're done. You're done. Oklahoma State, you drop another game that you're done. A 2-loss conference champion can only get in if they have a better resume than another 2-loss conference champion. Because you think Auburn could very well be a 2-loss non-conference champion, with their 2 losses being to 2 teams that will probably be in the college football playoff. how much can you hold that against them if they lose to Clemson at Clemson 14-6 and then loses to Alabama by less than a touchdown or a touchdown? 2 losses to the 2 best teams in the country by a total of 15 points. And then they're sitting there on everybody's board, and you're matching what they've done versus a 2-loss USC team or a 2-loss Oklahoma team. I'd put Auburn in at 2 losses, with their 2 losses being versus Alabama and Clemson, over a Washington team that lost to Washington State and Oregon. So, it's early. It's still early. Still early. And it's only week 7. Still, most teams still have 6, 7 games to play. So, still a lot of things to be worked out. Still interesting to see how South Florida, San Diego State, and UCF get handled going forward. You look, Notre Dame, they're steady creeping. They have a big game. It's almost an elimination game coming up between them and USC in a couple of weeks. If USC loses to Notre Dame, even as a 2-loss Pac-12 champion, it's going to be hard. But Notre Dame still has a tough schedule. They still have NC State, Miami, Navy, and Stanford. And that's after USC. And they go to Miami, and they go to Stanford. They get Navy and NC State at home as well as USC. So it's going to be still a lot of football left to play. But I like it. I'm liking it. Let's see how things get handled. Let's see how guys handle this going forward. Think TCU's got a tough road ahead as well, but right now they're the only undefeated team in the Big 12. The last undefeated team in the Big 12. Of course, Texas is undefeated in conference play, but TCU stands alone as the lone undefeated team in the Big 12. So, again, I love the way they've done it with everybody just playing each other once. And then the 2 best teams at the end of the year will play each other for the conference championship. I love that format. I love it. So, this weekend, and the top 25 starts on Friday night with Clemson traveling to Syracuse Washington State travels to Cal.